go. A little wobbly there.
I don't know, be a wobbly.
What?
I can't hold it anymore.
We're so janky. What? Okay. I'll play some POD.
Wait, I didn't put rights on this. I didn't put the rights thing. Never mind.
Okay, then I won't do it. Why did that do that? I can't.
What's up, everyone? If you're tuning in, we're going to give a few minutes here and let people see that we're on. Let us know where you're from. Shout out your town and state and your company.
Oh, I need to pull that up here.
Give us a thumbs up, something. Let us know you're here. We're going to talk epoxy tonight.
Well,
Again, if you're just tuning in, we're just letting people catch up here. We'll get started. We're going to bring Lisa on tonight. Lisa Henson.
there it is. Okay.
You just have to turn your volume down. Yeah, click on it. What's up, everyone? Just giving a little bit of time for people to see that we're out here. We'll give it a couple minutes. Sorry we got started late tonight. We got women involved. That usually happens.
Blame it on us.
See the screen.
I know. I know.
Is Lisa in?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Might as well get rolling.
All right, I think Lisa's in here, so we'll get started. Let's see if we can flip this screen here. Whoa.
Whoa, what
Wrong
happened?
button.
What
Wrong button.
happened?
Wrong button.
We're amateurs.
There we go.
Hello.
What's up, everybody? How's it going? For those of you that may not know, this is my beautiful wife, Heather.
Hi. Hello.
We co-own MMA Minded Concrete, and we also run a martial arts business together. So the two of us together, we're a dynamic duo. No, we run businesses together, and there's ups and there's downs, and there's some benefits and negatives, and we're going to talk about those tonight. I think we're going to bring Lisa on. She's going to talk a little bit. She runs, from what I understand, an epoxy business with her man, and so we'll get into it. We'll talk about that. First off, check this out. I don't know if you can see. It might be reverse. I can't tell.
I think it's kind of reversed.
I think there was another store just opened on the site.
Yeah.
If you guys want to get stuff, it might be closed already. If not, we'll have another store going, I'm sure. But Concrete Everything, share your knowledge. Swag. All right, let's see if we can get.
I think Lisa's
Son
waiting on
here.
her husband or her
Okay.
significant other. So,
Her man.
yep,
Is that what it is?
yep.
Right on.
We'll see her shortly.
Right on. So she's in. Okay, so a little bit more about us, right? I've some of you know that I've done concrete pretty much my whole life. I grew up in the field. That doesn't mean I know how to do it. I just have been around it. I like to make pretty stuff. I like to do decorative concrete. 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
About
We
2.5 years ago, yeah, we started our own. We went out on our own.
Yep, we went out our own, started our own company, started doing our own thing.
Mm-hmm.
I handle everything that is pouring concrete, and anything that's not pouring concrete.
Right. Yours truly. Customers.
Yeah.
Billing.
All the
concrete
above, right?
people. Drivers. Actually, I don't deal with the drivers really. Mm-hmm. It's mostly the plant.
Batchman, Don.
Yeah. Don. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, mm-hmm. So we make it work, right? But as anybody knows who's been in the business with a significant other, there's ups and downs, right?
In this business, oh my gosh, what were we thinking?
I think, yeah, you talking to the ladies out there that, yeah.
I'm talking to anybody in the business. What are you talking about? What are we thinking? Yeah. I'm thinking concrete in general in Indiana.
So who said it? Oh, we don't want to say who said it.
I don't know.
They said it's like gambling with good odds.
It's like something.
That was a quote. Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's good and it's bad.
Live on the edge.
So live on the edge.
We're living on the edge.
Concrete's been good to us though.
Yeah,
I think,
it has.
So.
I mean.
What do you think is the worst part about being a business owner in the concrete field? Worst part. Don't make your eyes so big.
Oh, the worst part. Dealing with uncontrollable elements of the weather. You can't control the weather, and that is the worst part of the concrete industry. I didn't know that getting into it originally until winter came, and it's like, so what do we do now? We pour concrete, right? And it's not.
Some do.
I mean, we do. We pour concrete in the winter.
Yeah, but I hate it.
But when you have somebody like this guy who doesn't like to be cold.
I'm a weenie when it comes to the cold, guys. Sorry.
You wait till the spring for some jobs.
I'll focus on my martial arts on the winter.
Yeah. So.
But that's me, man. There's some savages out there. I see you guys posting your work still and concrete blankets and the. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Man, the frozen ground thawing. It's you guys are savages. Troopers. And you have my respect.
Troopers, I have.
What about
respect.
Lisa? We hear anything from her yet? Is she ready?
Up.
Lisa, you in? You still waiting? We don't want to ramble about ourselves too much.
We're boring, really.
Check out my tankard my wife hooked me up with. The Man of Strength, right?
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's weird.
Those of you guys got the same heart. It's got some good scripture on the back, so.
Yeah.
She hooked me up. Tankard, is that what they call them? Tankard?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what you told me.
All right.
Okay, so Lisa's ready to come in.
Okay,
Let's
cool.
Pull her up. Get some epoxy knowledge, and we've, I don't know about you guys, but we've really started to get into the epoxy world because, well, winter in Indiana, we needed to put something else in our basket. Mm-hmm. And so for us, plus I love to do epoxy. After doing the first job, I fell in love with it. It's just so cool. Mm-hmm. So that's why we wanted to bring on Lisa and her man. And we're trying to get you in, Lisa. So I'll just keep rambling.
There you go.
But anyways, that's why we decided to do epoxy. Was number one, to fill that void, I guess, from a financial standpoint, to give us something else. But number two, it's just so cool, and every job is different. It's awesome. So I love epoxy, and I don't know what he's doing with his phone right now. He's just trying to. We're just
there it is. Got it.
We're just amateurs. Okay?
Amateurs here.
We're amateurs.
We're concrete and epoxy people. We're not.
But about epoxy.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here. Absolutely.
I want to learn about everything.
So, Lisa, are you in?
It's Adner.
Oh, okay. We're still adding you.
I remember our first.
Oh gosh.
Our first epoxy job.
Wait, was that Mike?
Abbott's.
Abbott. Oh.
The salesman that we had, he had us so scared.
I was afraid.
We were gonna mess something up.
I was shaking when it was go time. I was legitimately shaking. Hi guys.
Oh, see if we can get some.
Hi. We're just talking about our first.
Yeah, we can't hear anything.
Hello, hello. Check, check, check one. Check.
Can
Mic
you
check
hear us?
one. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
This isn't working.
Can you turn up your volume a little bit?
All right.
Hey,
How y'all doing?
Hey.
it was a long day
Good,
today.
good.
How we can make this work. That's awesome.
Right
So-
on. So, Lisa and your
Brandon.
man is, what is it?
Brandon.
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 Lisa and Brandon, what is up? So you guys are epoxy gurus from what I see the pictures of
Yeah.
anyway. Okay? What's your company? What's the company?
Superior Concrete Decor
And you're
Nice.
where?
in Sebring, Florida.
Nice. I don't
Where-
know what that is.
Give me
Nowhere.
some approximation. West.
It's about 2 hours south of Orlando.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Okay.
So
Oh, okay. So,
bunch of bunch of
Rednecks.
land, bunch of
Yep,
trucks.
yep. So is epoxy your main focus, or you guys do a little bit of everything, or
We do a little bit of everything. We
flip your phone back? Flip your phone
Okay.
back.
Side. Yep, there you go.
Yep.
go ahead.
Okay, so epoxy and
Oh, hold on.
whoa, whoa,
We got,
whoa,
stu-
whoa.
we got studio falling down.
Jeez. Okay, carry on. Roll on.
Carry on.
You hold this because this is hard for me to hold it cross body. Is that better? Yeah, we don't need these. They're not working.
So we do stains, stamped concrete, modified cement overlays,
Awesome.
Vinyl
Nice.
flake.
vinyl flakes. We dabble in everything. We haven't done polishing concrete or acid stain yet, but that we're always looking to do more and grow, our knowledge. So
Absolutely. Interior, exterior, both.
Both.
You guys doing like pool decks and that kind of thing too?
yeah, we've done pool decks and color flakes, modified cement,
Awesome.
solvents, stains.
Countertops? You doing any countertop stuff?
We do a lot of epoxy countertops.
Right on.
Yep.
Now, when you're doing your epoxy, is that you going over like a Formica countertop or wood or concrete, all the above?
Yeah, everything. Except glass, of course.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You can even patch granite countertops and marble, with epoxy.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell us
You know,
about that. I'm interested.
Divots and stuff, and
So
you
like,
can
like a damaged or a cracked epoxy
Yeah.
counter or a granite countertop?
if there's like a hole and something fell in it, if you have the colors, you can get the colors to the right point, and you'll have to take a beveling tool because you want to sand the areas, clean it real good, and then
Right.
put your epoxy in there with your colors and try to pour it as flat as possible. And of course, you can polish it down,
Right on.
That's great to know.
I had
Yeah,
never even
no,
thought
that's
about
great
that.
to know that.
That adds, I mean, the
Another
idea.
business element to
Yeah.
it. Another
Yeah,
just
repair.
something to add to that.
Yeah.
What
yeah.
got you guys into this? What brought you guys into this world of concrete and epoxy and all
I had
the
a
fun
I
stuff?
had a good answer for what brought us into this world. Um.
Well, go ahead.
So okay. So
Two different stories.
yeah. So we've actually.
That's okay. Hey, that's okay.
Same.
Same here. Okay, I got drug into it.
Middle school. We've known each other for a really long time. And what's funny is we were just friends. I actually dated his best friend. So that's an even funnier story for a different time.
Hey,
I actually I moved back to Florida. I lived in New Hampshire for a while. And I actually walked in on him and his friend the first time they were messing with epoxy.
Doing a coffee table.
I'm
Trying to
glad you said that because I was thinking wrong things. I was just thinking, walked in on, whoa, this is Pete.
and I'm
No,
like
epoxy.
Epoxy.
stuff and he's like, it's epoxy. I'm like, what's epoxy? And then he had me do a sample board and then we're like, oh, I guess Lisa's doing epoxy.
Yeah, first time she was just great at it. She
Yeah.
just has a feel because a lot of times you see pictures where it's kind of choppy, and
Right.
with the epoxy, it's all
yeah.
about
Okay, we're good.
Uh-oh, we're losing you. Okay.
it's all about rhythm and being smooth and she just has that touch.
Right on. And
Awesome.
there's just a feel for the timing of it, right? I mean, it's just like if you were pouring concrete, the timing of the epoxy, the way it's setting up and stuff is a huge,
It is.
you have to be aware of that.
Oh yeah, you have to make sure everything is set up. We've done 2,000 square feet in one shot, so we had everything set up.
That's what our
That's our max
second
too.
job,
The
which
second
was
job we'd ever
crazy,
done,
was 2,400
24.
square feet, and
We jumped
we
in
were
feet first.
scared as all could be, but we totally jumped in, and it was just like when it's go time, it's go time. It's like
Yeah.
all
Yep.
hands on deck, boom, boom, boom. Otherwise, if you lose that epoxy, as you guys know, it's an expensive loss. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no room for
And cleaning it,
It's
having to like take it out and redo it, just the part of taking it off after it's already down is such a pain in the ass. Like it's, excuse my French, but it's really like, it's really
oh
not.
yeah,
That's why you want to get it right the first time so you don't have problems with it. And it
yeah,
takes
we had to
training.
do that.
One thing I will tell you with epoxy is a lot of people want to get into it, but it's really hard to do. Like I've taught a couple of classes here and there, and I tell people the best thing to do is get a couple of kits and mess with them.
Right.
Clean
right.
those outside, test how they are with abrasion. Whatever sealer you're wanting to use, test it first. You don't ever want to be using the product the first time on a floor of a contract you sign
Right.
with somebody. That's a big mistake.
Right
Agreed.
on.
Agreed with
What
that.
when you guys had an error, how were you going to strip the epoxy? What did you do to strip the epoxy? Did you take it all the way back down to bare?
You
Did you
stand
just
it.
go to base coat?
It's gonna sound like we have an
We
ego.
had a pretty
We
bad
had a
mess up.
similar, so that's why we're laughing because we
We
sanded the
sanded
crap
down
Yeah.
to
out
base
of
coat.
that epoxy, and it was durable. It's a very durable product.
Oh
Okay.
yeah. Well, we've actually never had that type
No.
of issue.
We've never had to completely take it down. We've been called into jobs of other people that have done epoxy and had to remove what they've done. And
Oh,
this is like the one scenario I can think of, like they didn't mix it properly and it literally ripped off almost like
Yeah, it was like latex.
fruit by the foot. It was like peeling right off. Oh no.
Peeled
Yeah.
right off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
that wasn't too bad.
No.
Ours, we had done a
Ours-
front porch.
And it was done great.
We were just finishing up,
Finish
rolling out the
it.
last bit of it, putting
Beautiful.
some veining, and here come the tree guys to cut down a tree in the front, and the
And the
sawdust in
wind
the
and the
air.
rain kicked up. And it came
was
through the screen.
It was horrible.
It
The
was
craters that it created from all the sawdust in the air was ridiculous.
where every piece of sawdust was, it created this huge crater that
You get the torch
It
and
was
you just
bad.
burn it.
yeah. Well,
we tried. We done
we
it was,
tried.
but it was
At least
so
it was a small
bad.
porch though.
Yeah, it
it
was
was
like
it was like 100 square feet, so we're not talking
Yeah.
huge, but we were just like, what?
We learned a lot on that mistake.
And man, that is epoxy is very durable when laid down correctly. It does not come back off very well.
The only problem we had was the 9,000 square feet at the hospital. It was just their floor was built in 1960, so it was just up and down, and he wanted it flat. And it's like, okay, well, if you want it flat, it's going to cost more, and you have to put a clear on it. And
Right.
it got pretty flat, but man, trying to sand it up
That's a lot.
and down, that was difficult. But, other than that, I mean,
well, that's the other thing too. I tell people when you're bidding for epoxy, the square footage they have on the can is pretty much for a floor that's 100% level that has no cracks and no walls. And it's like you have to compensate for when your floor looks like this because honestly, has anyone ever seen a perfectly level 100% concrete floor in a building? No.
Never.
Unless AJ did it. Unless
it's
AJ did
brand
it.
spanking new. Yeah. And then even then.
Yeah, mine's perfect. Yeah. Power to
Yeah,
them.
right.
Every time you do a concrete floor, if you're level, please let us put epoxy on it. But usually, like these older buildings, especially in Florida, we have lots of shifting concrete here because we're
Right.
sand and water. So taking over my you have to like compensate for that, and a lot of people have kicked themselves in the rear doing epoxy floors because they don't think about those things. They don't think about how it's millages, and it's not just you're putting paint on a flat surface. Like you're going deep with this stuff, so you have to compensate for some people don't fill cracks and they're like, what happened to all my epoxy? It's like, well, you lost a gallon of it in this crack because you didn't fill it.
Right.
Yeah.
What are you guys using? You got a go-to that you're used for your crack filler?
there's a 2-part epoxy
Yeah,
standard.
Is that you just use another 2-part epoxy?
Okay.
Yeah.
They wanted looks like Ben Bass wants to know, do you guys have a preferred epoxy brand? We don't specifically have a preferred
We've used a
one.
bunch of
We've
different
used
ones,
different
but-
brands. Do you guys have a brand that you love that you want to shout out to?
I'm not afraid to say that. I like Surecrete's epoxy. I love their.
That's what, yeah. We
I've
like
used
Surecrete.
the time. It works really well, and I'm not afraid to say that because most of our competitors don't know how to use
We-
epoxy. I could tell them where to buy it and everything, and it wouldn't matter, you know. So I'm very proud about that. I've used probably like 6 or 7 different types. If I'm doing a large scale floor, that's the one that I'm going to use, you know.
Yeah,
We love
that's our go-to. We've used Ligari as well, but I really like Surecrete, the way it lays out, the consistency of it. It's always consistent.
Yeah.
For
Yep.
us anyways.
If you thin them out, make them a little too watery, they think
Right.
that it's gonna move more.
Or they're
And
too
that's-
thick.
Yeah, or too thick, like Sherwin.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah,
kinda-
way too thick.
Yeah. And
I've heard that about Sherwin Williams being a little too thick to really
I'm gonna
move
try
around
that
or
one.
work well. I've heard
Yeah.
what he's saying.
Yeah.
Though, same.
I've
we
heard that.
put the product out. They actually made another product for us to test out. And we tested out in a floor and gave them, things that they could do to change it, and
Yeah, because their product is made by H&C. So I know a couple of, like, the big wigs from that company when I did an epoxy demo, and he asked me to, where are you going? Okay. And he asked me to test like one of their newer epoxies because their biggest problem is their square footage is not where it should be, and their epoxy is really thick. And the problem is when you get into this stuff, if it only has 15 minutes of work time, there's not much you can do with that.
Exactly.
And that's the biggest thing is like work time, how thick. Oh, perfect. He got something for us to put the phone on so we're not, like
Nice.
this whole time.
Yep.
Okay, we'll do, yeah, there we go. We're actually holding our phone up with a sander.
Hey, it makes me happy to know that we're not the only amateurs with
We're
this.
amateurs.
It took us like 45 minutes to figure out our Bluetooth today.
Hey.
I can grind something.
All
Yeah,
good.
phone with a
All
video.
good.
But we're similar to you guys in the sense of like how long we've been together and doing the business and stuff. Like I pretty much do the same thing. I'm out there when I'm not always out there when they grind, but I'll like help with the vacuum. I'm not a grinding person.
She holds the grinder.
I'm
It's
a
a big-
mixer. I do
I
mixing.
can hold the grinder. I'm very proud of that because that sucker weighs like 1,000,000 pounds.
There's no way I couldn't do it.
I
we
get
had
out
to
there.
carry it up 2 flights of stairs to do this project we were on.
I didn't. do that.
What are you guys using for a grinder? What do you use to grind?
Lavina.
Okay. And then what are you using for your edging to get into the edges and the corners?
I use a hand grinder
Cup
with
grinder.
DeWalt,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just a shroud on it.
yeah, 20
Yeah.
hooked up to our our big vacuum system,
Yep.
but
Awesome. Awesome. Now,
25
I always ask everybody because it was one of the things that took me forever to figure out. How do you get right into the corner to grind right into the corner?
His answer is going to be different than mine. I would use a flathead screwdriver and a hammer, which everyone's going to attack me for that, and I don't care. But yeah,
Hey, you're getting a good profile
Whatever
anyway.
works.
right?
Yeah.
They have those triangle bits, reciprocating ones, and those
Yep.
sometimes work depending on what's on the floor. There's glue that's not going to work, and a lot of times I take a flat blade on a DeWalt and just a thin one, and I kind of just go underneath of it and just lift it up, and it'll peel right up, and that's how I
Right
just
on.
get underneath the walls, and that's how I do it, because you got to get every little piece.
Yep, for sure.
That's the truth. Yeah, every
Excuse me.
little
Anything
thing. Kurt Embry. Sorry, what are you doing? Making me
I
choke up
burped. You
too?
burped. We all
I
burped.
didn't burp. I choked. Okay, so Kurt Embry says his company just knocked out a 30,000 square foot metallic in 9 days, grind off and reapplied.
Awesome.
That's impressive.
How much?
30,000. Is that
Kurt.
30? Is that 30,000? That's impressive.
Dang.
Like I'm nervous with
That's intense.
2,000.
Great.
Metallic at that.
I
Metallic
know,
at that.
In
Yeah,
9 days,
that's a lot of
that's
money.
a lot of money.
That is a lot of
Kurt's
money.
now taking a vacation to the Bahamas for the next 6 months.
That's your whole year right there, about,
Yeah.
you know.
Man, killed it.
Man.
Right on.
And
We got to talk to that guy next.
no doubt, Jason
That's a lot.
Mastelli, I hope I
Yep.
didn't mispronounce that. He said resand it with open screen 90 grit. I'm guessing that's for our question about
Oh,
how do we get it off,
Yep,
get that
that's what we did.
removed.
We sanded down.
Yep. So, what's one of your most favorite jobs
Hang
you've
on, let's
done?
get rid of this train.
Oh,
Sorry,
sorry.
we're near the tracks.
Please hold one moment.
Studio difficulties.
Our amateur difficulties. That's our train that every 15 minutes.
It sounds like it's right next to you guys. It's really loud.
It about is. I mean, it just about is. But so what is one of your most favorite jobs you've done thus far? Coolest jobs, or most the ones you're just super proud of, and it came out really. I mean, they always come out awesome, of course. But the one you can really remember, you're like, wow, that one was really cool.
Honestly, the hospital we had so many different rooms, and we had different, we could just mess with it. We can do different variances and stuff like that. There's really they wanted a similar design, but in reality, everybody had their own room, and we
Cool.
That's awesome.
That is cool. What colors do
each
you
one
guys mostly like? What's your
it was like
go-to color?
oak brown and white for that building.
Pearl.
Pearl.
Okay.
As far as go-to colors, probably
Ones you use often. Like, do you have
What?
colors like for us? We have like usually a black base
We like
and
the
a
gray and the
silver and the
white, silver and
grays.
the grays.
We do a lot of those.
You want me to answer that?
Yeah.
I always prefer a black base with epoxy.
Yep.
Same.
Usually people, when they want a solid white epoxy floor, I try and talk them out of it.
It was our first
learned
floor.
that.
We learned that from our first floor. That was our first floor, and it was
first
us
floor.
too.
let's not do white.
For some reason, every person that starts epoxy, they get a white floor. That's what people want, that pearl or that solid white Pinterest picture that's pinned a billion times and everyone shows it to you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Every time.
That's the one they
That
showed
was our
us.
first
Do
floor.
this.
Yeah.
And it was like no more. And I said after that job, I'm like, no more white floors. No,
So
let's
did
not do
you
white.
went ahead with it and did the white floor?
Oh yeah.
And how'd it turn out?
It turned out good.
Yeah.
After
Yeah, that's how ours was.
After.
I didn't fill the crack, and I should have filled the crack, so I had to redo it. But you live and learn, like
it was recommended by HR that we fill the crack,
she's HR.
and we did.
That's awesome.
Dang. See what happens when you don't listen to HR?
And white. In ours, the house was an older home, but the people that lived in it prior were heavy smokers, and so that nicotine bled through, and it almost had a yellow hue. Thankfully, I guess it's whitened out. We've been told by the homeowner, he loves it, but he said it's whitened out since. But we were like, what is going on here? And so it was scary for a minute, but it turned out great afterwards. But man, it was nail biting.
It looked yellow the next day.
It looked
turned
like
yellow.
it had a yellowing effect, and I was like, let's not.
Oh, so it was like yellow after it cured.
Yeah, as it was curing too. But now he said that since it's cured fully, he said it whited out and it's fine. So that might be something for people who want white floors to
I think he's
about.
just used to it now, and he thinks it's white.
He got different looks.
It looked
Don't
good.
watch this, Mike.
It looked good, but it was just a little more yellow.
Yeah, it had a tint to it.
Mhm.
It was
What would
pretty,
you
but
say is like your biggest mistake you've made with epoxy that you learned the most from?
do what?
What would you say is your biggest mistake with epoxy that you learned the most from?
To always bid more than what you think you're gonna have. I mean, we've never came out short, but we've cut corners so close to where I was
Pull it from
sweating.
over there.
Oh man, I was sweating bullets. So always overbid that job, because you don't know how thick that epoxy is gonna be. Again, we know with Surecrete, thankfully, but always overbid and just be prepared. Make that list, check it twice, and have enough people in place to make sure that job it's right now. It's go time. So, and don't dump the product ever. We about had a disaster. Like,
Dump half of a
A
bucket,
bucket.
and then the whole kit's gone.
and then what? So we managed to salvage it, but that was our first job too. Again, that was the same job with the yellow floor, half the bucket dumped out, thankfully on plastic, so we were able to scrape it back in. But man,
it was bad. That one we ended up
was
just doing it by the ounce and saved what we had, and we had enough.
yeah, we had enough, but it was.
Yep.
How about you guys?
Do you want me to answer this one?
Yes.
If you ask me my favorite, it takes me a while. If you ask me my least favorite, instantly I
That's
know.
how we are.
Yeah.
Totally.
We did an epoxy floor, and it was like a solid white one, and they wanted this marble look with like a blue and a brown. And I'm not going to say the company it was that wanted us. It was pretty much us going in to redo something another contractor messed up. So we had to use their product. That was the stipulation of doing this project. And unfortunately, we had to use one product as the base color to get white, because if you're doing a white epoxy floor, you really shouldn't put black as your base. And I know people will argue that, and that's fine, but it leaves too much room for errors, and you'll always see the black underneath that pearl. There's no way around that unless you're doing like a solid pigmented metallics. But for the most part, you're gonna see it. And the white that they chose for us to use was what's the name of it?
It was Armor Seal.
Armor Seal 8100 was what they recommended.
Which is not a primer.
And that, when there was someone that posted like a couple weeks ago about what we thought about Armor Seal 8100, and I'm like, other people might use it and love it. It was a nightmare under epoxy. That stuff was terrible. It's so gaseous. It gassed so much. It came off the concrete really easily. And like when I was on my cleats, it really scared me, because if you accidentally slide or you're about to fall, which always happens, because
Oh gosh, yes.
any person that says they don't slide in them is lying. Like, it's hard to walk on those. It's worse than rollerblades.
Oh,
Sometimes
yeah.
you're doing like
Real
large.
hard.
Anyways, they're difficult sometimes, especially when you're in them for multiple hours and you're working, whatever.
Oh,
And this stuff was like, it was a freaking nightmare. We had so many bubbles, I can't even tell you. And it was just,
Everything,
Miserable.
the design looked good, but the product was failing, and that's what they gave us. And we told them it wasn't good. They said, no, it should be fine. It was not fine. We tried to fix it, and
not fine, not good, huh?
it was not going to be fine.
Yeah,
but,
it turned out well, but
the design was flawless. They wanted like an emerald blue with some topaz, with the white wood and some marble, and it was pretty, but the product itself was not.
Yeah, like he trials the white out, and I'm on cleats like in the metallics, and I have like a cup of the blue and a cup of the taupe, and then I have a little DeWalt blower like across my body, like on a belt. And so I'd put down the blue and then blow it with the blower, and then put down the taupe and then blow it with the blower, and it was a crazy scene.
You're using the blower to move the color. Is that what you were doing?
Move it around.
Right on.
Everything else is going to flow out eventually if it moves. If that was Surecrete's product, it would definitely.
It would have been so much easier.
So
this epoxy was like really, really thick, and when it's thick epoxy, the problem you see is it doesn't faux those colors the way it should. It's almost like doing some kind of paint that's already dry, and then you're trying to faux another color into it, and it's there's nothing you can do. And once you hit
just gonna sit there.
That point, you're done. You have to get off.
What are you doing for the bubbles? What did you do to get rid of the bubbles?
We use torches. Torches work really well. But the bubbles occurred after the cure time for us to walk on it. Like it was past like 35 minutes, and I'm looking at it, and it's gassing in all these like places, and I'm like, well, guess that's getting more epoxy.
Fill the holes with some type with epoxy, and the product underneath was a permeable product, so it's just allowing air to keep
it just kept gassing and gassing. No, even when we filled them, it still gassed, so eventually it had to have a thick clear coat and done. It was tough. There was a
nightmare because everything was set perfect, and then
that's what's hard when you get that perfect floor and all the design's good, and then you have an issue like that and you have to act on it fast. But once that time passes and you can't walk on it, that drives me
Mhm.
crazy. That I'm like, I see it, I'm like, oh, somebody get me like a 20-foot long tweezer. Like there's one
Yeah, no doubt. Yes,
Cockroach,
or a
oh,
little
lizard.
speckle something gets in it.
when we
Now, what
did.
about
Go ahead.
denatured alcohol? I've heard people will spray mist that afterward. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, you can use that.
Xylene.
The help
Acid,
xylene.
Yeah.
all three give you different looks.
Yeah.
So what does that product do? I've heard of people doing it. Is it for the bubbles to get rid of the bubbles? Does it make the epoxy react different and create different effects? What is the purpose of that?
Um, so the denature is really good for getting rid of bubbles. Um,
Okay.
so honestly, all three of them are,
Right.
but they do something different to the epoxy. And when I first started doing it, I realized that each one of them reacted different to epoxy. One of them reacts to the pigment that's in there, one of them reacts to the surface level, and one of them actually goes all the way through to the bottom part where the metallics are sitting. Because essentially when you do epoxy, all of that pigment sinks and you have this like clear layer that's on the top, and that's why you have that glassy look. And so some of them, like each of them react differently to each thing. I know that kind of like doesn't make sense, but
Well,
That
like
no,
makes
because
total
No,
sense.
that makes sense. Maybe
like
for
Xylem,
us.
because it gives it more of a vein look in between the
Okay.
flowing colors. You have more of a vein, like
yeah.
kind of thin lines, where
Mhm.
acetone gives you more kind of like a bubbly uh, flow. Kind of like if you jump
Right.
in the water and there's a camera underneath the water, it kind of goes kind of like
Mhm.
that. And acetone gives you more of like an octagon kind of pattern, and then over time it will flow. Um,
Okay.
I don't know how to
So you
explain
see it
it.
on. Is that
You just
do
missed in
you
it.
just mist it in at a certain at what point of the curing process do you mist it in? Is it right before it's ready to do its thing, or
You can do it as you go. You can wait about 5 minutes and then put it in there. It just depends on what you're looking
I
for.
I
Yeah.
usually have a rule with like spraying things on epoxy. If you can't walk on it anymore, you shouldn't be spraying on it.
right?
Because I
That's
Makes
feel like
pretty
sense.
good.
if it's past the point of you being able to walk on it, if you put any of those chemicals on top, you may not have that glassy look anymore. And that
True.
even though they do evaporate really fast, I just for when every time we've done a countertop or a floor, if I can't walk on it or physically move things around, I feel like spraying it isn't the best idea because I've had some where I've put xylene in it or sprayed a little bit of xylene on it, and it almost looked like it had dimples on that top
Yeah.
surface. So I feel like
Mhm.
if something's going to mess up what you're doing, like don't do it. And that's why after that walk time, like usually you have between I would say depending on the temperature and all those other factors, you have between 15 and 35 minutes of like
Mhm.
just depending on the situation of you being able to have like to get off of that epoxy. And after that time, you shouldn't be spraying anything on it because then you're tampering with your cure time. You could have some spots that are still gooey. You could have some that, you know, I can't even like think off the top of my head. I thought I had like 10 different things in there, but I forgot all of them.
Oh yeah,
That's all right. I'm
because
sure we'll
What
talk again. So, because
yeah, for
there's so
sure.
much
There's so much in
for
this.
people that want to get
What
into this too.
what are some cues that you're looking for to know that okay, I don't need to walk out there anymore? Other than obviously if I set
How do
my
you
cleat
test
on
it?
there and it
How do you
doesn't fill
test it?
back in.
Yeah. What's your tester?
uh,
You just got to know. Is it one of those things where you just it's
yes,
like concrete?
chemical
You
It
just got to
is. You
responses.
just
know.
kind of know.
When you're in there in the environment, you know how long you got.
Right.
And you just know how much time you have, and you always try to cut at least 5 minutes off of that because you really don't want to get into touching it when you shouldn't be. But it's really just a feel of it and just knowing when, hey, that's enough.
So
Sometimes she tells me, hey, get off it, it's enough. I'm like, I
that
just
was
want to
that was
touch it a
gonna
little
be
more.
my answer. That was
He was blowtorch happy on our countertop, and I was like,
Oh,
listen, step away
no
from the
to get off because I'm
blowtorch. You're
telling him to get
burning
off
it.
of it.
yeah.
Yeah, thankfully it was ours, but he kind of torched it in some spot. It was like starting to burn. So
I was
yeah,
playing.
I was like,
Playing around.
step away
That
from
is
the
cure time.
torch.
Yeah. If you see that, it's done. Don't touch it
So
anymore.
one thing I do, and I don't know if anybody else is like does this when you're doing epoxy. from the moment they put you mix your part A and your part B, I actually have a timer that starts ticking at that moment. Because from the moment those two like meet each other and start mixing, that's part of your cure time. And so when I'm, moving the epoxy, I have that in my eye distance wherever I'm at. If there's a windowsill, my phone goes on that windowsill and I watch see how much time is passed since those two have like joined with each other. Because that'll tell you too, like when you see it's at 25 minutes, you're like, yeah, okay, everybody off the epoxy, like clear the room,
Clear the deck.
Now,
Step aside.
when you guys, when you're mixing up, like, I'm sure you're really crucial to the bucket time, right? Everybody talks about the bucket time. Get it out of the bucket because
you
it'll
can
pop
just
in the
feel
bucket.
it when you're mixing it too. Like I can feel it, and I'm like, we've got to do this now. Like I'm feeling it thicker, and I know it's time to go.
That bucket makes it go.
Don't over. Yeah.
In the quart cups, I mean, you have a long time because it's not a whole bunch of material. As far as the buckets, you got to know how far you're going with each bucket, for the material. But you pour it out and you really don't rush it. We've never had to let it sit in there for too long. We've never had it really get hot or anything because we pour it out in a certain fashion. We know where we're going to put it, how we're going to pour it.
I would say our epoxy never sits more than like 10 minutes in a bucket. Ever.
Yeah.
The longer it's in that, for some reason, epoxy cures faster when it's in a thicker amount.
Well, everything's dropping to the bottom.
Yeah.
So it's hard to be.
Yeah. And it doesn't fully mix. Like a lot of people think when you mix the color.
Oh, you're talking metallic.
Yeah, like let's say metallic. When we start mixing in the metallic, your natural reaction is to think it's going to mix in with it, and it doesn't. Like you got to stir it, but it's not ever going to be fully dissipated. And so you just got to know
that was one thing that you had a problem with.
Yeah. We got a question from Clyde Pierce. What are the three chemicals to give that effect? Xylene, acetone, and denatured alcohol. Which one gives the veiny effect? And I don't.
He answered that.
Okay, you did answer that. You want to maybe reiterate it again?
Xylene.
Which one gives Xylene? Okay, so it's
Xylene, and then obviously
there's pictures and videos on YouTube, and people don't always explain how to do that veiny look. And if that's something people really want, one thing that I do, and this is like a little secret and I'll share with you guys, is once I get to an end of like a bucket, you're actually never supposed to use what's left over in there because it's never fully cured. You always leave like, I would say like a 1/4 inch in the bottom of the bucket. You never flip them over and leave them like to run down. Like that's a huge mistake. But if I have like a decent amount left in the bucket, I'll actually pour xylene in there, and then I'll mix the xylene so it's watery, and then I'll flick that onto the surface, because instead of flicking a solid clear substance, you're flicking something that has epoxy and pigment in it.
Substance.
Yeah. And so when I toss it on there, it also has veins, but it has pigment in it as well. So it gives it this really cool look. But to get that veiny look, xylene's what definitely gives that veiny look.
Nice.
And you don't want to go too, and when you're going to use...
I told you every 15 minutes. We ain't not lying.
On cue.
Yep. No, for real. Yeah.
Cheap.
Like every 15 minutes as you train.
Yeah, that's why we got it so cheap. You're right.
Right.
Nobody else could deal with it.
That's right.
Okay, so
that's a good tip.
With the xylene, you want to mix A and B, mix it up, pour in your xylene, mix it a little bit more, and then do your design. Because if you put in the xylene in A, you're going to mix up your distribution between A and B.
Right.
Yeah.
So you'd want to get your mix first and then thin the full mix before, not just one part or the other.
Right. So yeah, so when I said to mix like the xylene with the metallics, like that's what it, like after you've already distributed it, you have a little bit in here, then put some... Oh, never mind. I'm sorry. No, we're here. I was like, what are you saying? Where are we going with that?
Yeah.
Well.
So let's see. I had a couple of questions.
I've got a ton of questions, but it's like I feel like we need a whole nother cast. Like we need to do this again because we could talk for 10,000 hours.
I got so many questions on.
For real.
So when you guys are doing countertops, let's say it's a Formica countertop. what are you using to fill gaps and holes and things like that? Well,
To make it level.
You can use Bondo
okay.
Okay.
or
And then you just sand it.
a 100%. Yeah, sand it. 100%. Is it acrylic silicone?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% acrylic. There's some that say they're 100% acrylic silicone and they're not. Because we tried to make molds for epoxy, and you can make homemade molds with silicone and water, but there's certain ones that won't form.
Let me just say something that's very important for this conversation, okay? My husband is the type of person that won't buy things. He thinks he can make anything.
Oh.
Oh, hold on. We lost.
He won't buy anything. He'll make all of it.
That's
He's that person.
Hey, I respect that. It's always fun making your own stuff too.
She had to prelude that.
That's all right.
Okay. So anyway.
Let's see. Can you hear us still?
And then the silicone for the Formica.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
that was a question.
We tested, so we had to test a lot of different things because you want something to adhere to the Formica, but you don't want something that's going to not work with the epoxy. So those were the two things that the Bondo was one of the first ones we used, and it held up really well. Like I think that's been down for what, like, sorry if it pauses it ever so often.
That's
You're
okay.
good.
That's all right.
But yeah, those
So
two
the
things.
Bondo was the first one you used, you said.
Okay.
Yeah, it works really well.
I like that.
And then you have to sand the Formica really well too. That's very, very important because epoxy, obviously, most people know this, it has to adhere to something. Same thing when you're doing anything with decorative concrete. You have to have grip to it for it to adhere. If it's super smooth, you have to like rough it up before you can put that base coat down. And you do have to base coat it we use a 2-part epoxy from Surecrete. We usually base coat it, and then shortly after we put our epoxy on it.
Yep. So when you put your base coat on, do you allow your base coat to completely dry and then sand it, or you get it to where it's, dry and then just go from there?
You always sand in between coats.
It works out better. They always say you have a window of time where you can recoat or put your metallics on it. I honestly can tell you, I like putting 2 base coats down when I'm doing a floor. Floors, I always put 2 base coats down. It gives you a better barrier between. Sometimes it depends on the job and the concrete and what condition it's in, but most of the time we'll use 2 base coats and screen in between and then apply our metallics.
That's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
That's real good to know.
Those 2 base coats make a huge difference with applying.
Really?
You'll have less issues with bubbling. That's the biggest thing.
Really?
Way less issues.
Because it fills in.
That's worth it. That's worth it then, because that cuts down on the sanding.
Oh yeah. I mean, it fills in more of, what the first coat didn't fill in the concrete, and then it just fills it in.
Right.
So when you're sliding that epoxy across, it's just like a wave just onto the beach. It's nice.
I like that idea. I don't know why I never thought that.
Idea.
I like that. 2 coats on the base.
So here's what I think we should do.
It's a little more
money.
It takes an extra day,
but
but
it's
overall,
worth it.
it's worth it for you and the customer.
It's worth it to not have bubbles, and it with that base coat epoxy, it's also like a self leveler. We usually trial that out when we do it. Like we'll trial and we'll roll with them.
Yeah.
And it really helps with that epoxy because then you have less issues with it gassing. You have more of a barrier. You have a good foundation for it. All the layers adhere to one another. It works out. That's the biggest thing. I've had people ask me like, why am I having issues with like all these bubbles? And I'm like, how many base coats did you put? And they're like, 1. I'm like, put 2. You won't have as many. You'll have maybe 2 bubbles for every like 1,000 square feet, if that.
Because it's a salt.
We're gonna try that for real.
Yeah, I like that
genius.
idea for sure.
Here's what I think we should do, because we need to wrap up soon. I think we should put a feeler out there. Well, I want to do another one, and I want to get questions from the community here, and that way we could answer the questions, because that way it would help us to know what do people like, especially people that have no idea what we're talking about getting into the business. I feel like there's a lot of questions that we could answer in the next one. Yeah, so we'll have Rocky put a post out, and let's do this again, because it's definitely so informative.
Awesome.
And,
Yeah,
yeah.
you guys are
Yeah,
awesome.
thanks for coming in.
Heck yeah.
Yeah,
That's
nice to meet you.
awesome. Enjoy the
What?
weather
Hang on, hang
there.
on. What?
Yeah.
What? I thought he said
Oh,
something.
We
yeah,
said nice
enjoy
to
the
meet
Florida
you.
weather.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be like 40 degrees tomorrow, so he'll be dressed like he's going on, an Appalachian trip, and I'll be.
Same here, him too. He can't stand, but it's like 20,
I hate
30
the
degrees.
Yeah, he hates it.
He hates the cold too. That's why we do epoxy. Oh,
I love it. I love the cold.
well, that's
She loves it.
yeah.
Right on.
Yeah,
We'll
it's nice
I'll
meeting
have
you guys.
Heather shoot you guys a message and we'll schedule see if we can get back
Let's do it
on and
again.
we'll have some questions. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Heather, Lisa, and her man. I done forgot his name.
Brandon.
Brandon. Heather, Lisa, Brandon. We're gonna do this again. We'll get some more epoxy questions.
We can talk
We'll
concrete
talk epoxy.
too. We can talk decorative concrete too.
Yeah, we'll talk some
That's
stamp
We'll do it
stuff too.
all.
Awesome. We'll talk to you guys
See you
again.
guys.